Well, hello everybody, and welcome. On this channel, we like to encourage people to simply be logical, to use their own brain, to logically and rationally come up with their own opinions and to think for themselves. Now, I know what you're thinking. That must mean I'm some sort of conspiracy theorist or think that the world's going to end. That's not true. I like to see all sides of an argument impartially and then make my own decision based off of my own life experiences and the knowledge that I have on certain things. Today we're going to talk about politics. And specifically, we're going to talk about the Republicans and the Democrats. We're going to talk about the two-party system that our democracy has become. And it's kind of unusual. Not a lot of democracies in the world are a polarized or a binary system, if you will, of political parties. Even in the United States, when this country first started out, there were more than two parties. And it continued on for years and years that way. And it really only became super polarized, I guess, after World War II. It's pretty recent development in the history of the world and of this country. And, what I'd like to propose, and you guys can comment below and get a discussion started because I'm sure everybody's going to have differing views. But what I'd like to suggest is that having a very polar opposite, very binary, fragmented system like we have is actually detrimental to the proper running of our country and the proper running of our government and the representation of the people, which is what's important to me. I think everybody's voice should be heard, and I think that everybody should be represented in the government. The problem is, when you have two political parties, you have the Republicans on one side, the Democrats on the other, in the way that our government currently is, not everybody falls into one end of the spectrum or the other. Very few people are very hard right or very hard left. So you end up with this group of people in the middle who aren't represented, who really don't have a voice in government. Because when you look at these two parties, they really go to the extreme on each end. And in order to get votes, they're not really concerned about echoing the beliefs and the values of the majority of their voters or their party members. They're more concerned about villainizing and demonizing the other party. That's how they're getting votes. The Republicans will say, that the Democrats are turning the country into a communist regime. Let's scare everybody so that they'll vote Republican. And the Democrats are saying that the Republicans want to do away with, your personal liberties and rights to choose and, decisions about your body and that kind of thing. So you got to vote Democrat so that the Republicans don't win. Is that really the type of representation that you want in your government? And I wouldn't even call it representation. If all they do is scare people into not voting for the other party, that's not representation in the government. If you bring in another party, and I'll just use the Libertarian Party for an example because they've been getting a lot of press lately and they've shown up in the presidential elections the last couple of years. What you're doing there is you are introducing another group to represent the views of people who don't line up with either of the others, so they don't agree with the binary system that we have. And what that does is it allows more people to be represented, and it gives a better balance in the government. You can add in any other parties that you like, the Green Party or whatever. The more that you have, the more balance you have, the less polarization that you have, the less fighting that you have. Even recent surveys have shown that even within their party, whether Republican or Democrat, very few people actually truly identify as that party. So what I'm encouraging everybody to do before the next election, just take a little bit of time to sit down and logically think about the choice that you're going to make when you get into the polls? Are you going to vote for one of the big two, this monopoly on our government that they have with wasteful spending on both sides, insider deals for cronies and payoffs and any other type of corruption and greed that you can think of? Or are you going to vote for a candidate who echoes your values to keep this democracy going? If you want to preserve the American democracy and the American government for future generations, it's not going to be by supporting the status quo. This is not a lesser of two evils game. It's not black or white. It's not, good or bad. It's about representation. If you just vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for evil. So next time you go out and vote, I would challenge you to please logically think about it before you do it. Vote for a candidate that reflects your values. The two big parties would like to say that if you vote for anybody other than those two, you're wasting your vote. That is not true. Anytime you vote for a candidate who you feel represents you, that's not a waste. That's a lie of those other two parties to try to scare you into not voting for anybody else. The more people who get out there and exercise that right to vote for somebody different, the more it will empower the others to do the same, and we can have more diversity in the government, more representation of everybody's values and beliefs in the government, and hopefully less hatred and animosity and divisiveness in this country. So, my challenge is to simply be logical. Until next time, think about it.